Lost cleaning crew clocks in at the back.
Brooke Lawson said nothing.
You hear me? This isn't your aisle at the dollar store, sweetheart. That bar costs more than everything you're wearing. Probably more than you.
Trevor Hale wiped the bar down where her hand had touched it.
People pay to train here, not to watch some broke, but nobody stink up the air.
He kicked her gym bag across the floor. Her chalk spilled white across the rubber.
Oops. Clean that. Then crawl back to whatever gym takes charity cases.
He picked up her water bottle and dropped it in the trash.
This place isn't for your kind. Never was.
Dustin Reed, the floor manager, just shrugged.
Don't touch the serious members' equipment.
40 people watched. Nobody said a word. Brooke knelt and gathered her chalk, slow, steady. In 90 seconds, every laughing mouth in that room would fall silent. The chalk dust settled. The laughter did not. It changed into something worse, a low and comfortable hum, the sound of people who already knew how this ended. They had seen it 100 times. A stranger wanders in, gets put in her place, and leaves. Free entertainment on a slow afternoon. This was Iron Crucible, the hardest gym in the city, and proud of it. The walls were lined with photographs of men mid-lift, veins like rope, faces twisted with effort. The largest photo hung above the front desk in a heavy black frame. Trevor Hale, mid-pole, 455 pounds, locked at the top, sponsor logos stitched bright across his chest. King of the room, and he knew it. People did not come here to be welcomed. They came to be ranked, and everyone had already decided where Brooke ranked. Last. Somewhere beneath last. Trevor turned back to his crew. 3 men in matching sponsored shirts, loud, certain of themselves. He grinned like a man who had already won. "Did you see her face?" one of them asked. "What face? I saw a mop with legs." They howled. A phone tilted toward Brooke and kept recording. Somewhere, a caption was already being typed. Some people collect moments like this, proof that they belong, and that someone else never will. Brooke stayed on one knee. She did not hurry. She gathered her chalk the way a person gathers something that matters, pinch by pinch, back into a small, worn tin. The lid had a name scratched into it once. She had sanded it smooth years ago. Some names you carry without ever writing them down. "She's praying," Trevor said. "Pray it gets easier, sweetheart." It won't. More laughter. Dustin Reed leaned on the front desk and scrolled his phone. A member was being humiliated on his floor, and he found it boring. That was the part that stung most. Not the cruelty, the indifference. Dustin knew the rule. Member harassment, written right there in the handbook he never opened. One word from him, and it ended. But Trevor brought followers, and followers brought memberships, and memberships brought his bonus. So Dustin looked back at his screen and decided he had seen nothing at all. $10 she cries, someone called out. $10 she runs, another answered. A second man from Trevor's crew cupped his hands. Hey, the soup kitchen called. They want their athlete back. The room laughed harder. A woman near the mirrors filmed in landscape, framing the shot like she already knew it would do numbers. Cruelty travels best in high definition. Nobody bet on her. Why would they? They had already decided who she was the second she walked through the door, in her faded shirt and her second-hand shoes, carrying a gym bag held together with tape. In the far corner, near the squat racks, an old man stopped mopping. Walter Hayes had cleaned this gym for 19 years. Before that, he had done other things. Things nobody here ever bothered to ask about. He leaned on the mop handle and watched the woman on the floor, and something cold moved through his chest. He knew that stillness. He had seen it once before, a long time ago, under brighter lights, in a far louder room. The way she breathed from the belly, the way her shoulders dropped instead of climbing toward her ears, the way her hands found the chalk without looking, like an old habit waking from a long sleep. Walter set the mop against the wall. His heart was doing something strange. "It can't be," he whispered. To no one, to himself. For a moment, the gym fell away. Walter was somewhere else. A national arena, years back. Every seat sold. A hush spreading before a record attempt. A young woman chalking her hands at a bar loaded past anything a body her size should move. He remembered the announcer's voice climbing. He remembered the whole crowd rising to its feet. Then he remembered the sound that followed, and the silence after it, worse than any scream in the world. He shook his head hard, as if the memory might shake loose and fall away. Trevor was not finished. Men like him rarely are. The crowd was still watching, and a crowd is a kind of drug. He walked a slow circle around her, arms spread wide, performing for the phones. "Tell you what," he announced. "Let's make this fun. Nobody's stopping you. Go ahead. Touch the bar. Lift it. Show everybody what you came here to do." He waved a hand at the loaded barbell behind him. Plates stacked thick on both sides, red and blue and black. A weight most of the room could not move. A weight he had just failed to move himself, though he would cut out his own tongue before admitting it. "Go on," he said. "We'll wait." It was a trap, and everyone knew it. Let her try. Let her strain. Let her fail in front of 40 phones. Then the clip writes itself. Then she becomes a punchline that travels the whole city by morning. Near the water fountain, a young woman looked away. Emma Carter had started here 3 weeks ago. She knew the exact weight of 40 stairs on a body that did not fit the poster on the wall. She wanted to say something. She opened her mouth. Then she remembered her own first week, the Snickers, the nicknames, and she closed it again. Shame is contagious. So is silence. Brooke had heard every word. She always did. The words never changed much from gym to gym, from year to year. Only the faces changed. She had a rule about words. You do not answer them with words. Words are their game, played on their court by their rules. She answered with the only language a room like this could never argue with. She let them talk. Then she let the iron talk back. It had taken her 3 years to relearn how to walk to a bar like this one. Nobody here would ever know that. Nobody needed to. Brooke pressed the lid onto the tin. Then she stood. Not fast, not slow. She rose the way a door closes in an empty house, quiet and final, and without any drama at all. She looked at the bar. Then she looked at Trevor. And for the first time since she walked in, she spoke. "This one?" she asked. Her voice was low and even, almost gentle. It did not match the room. It did not match the moment. It belonged to someone who had stood in far worse rooms than this and walked out standing. "That one," Trevor said, smiling wide, "unless you'd rather not embarrass yourself." "No," Brooke said. "That's fine." She walked toward the barbell. Each step landed soft on the rubber floor. Walter Hayes took one step out of his corner, then caught himself, gripping the mop handle like a railing on a sinking ship. 40 people leaned in. Phones lifted like a field of small black flags. This was the moment they had been promised. The fall, the flailing, the proof that they had been right about her all along. Nobody noticed the old janitor in the corner who had gone pale. Nobody noticed that his hands had started to shake. She reached the bar and looked down at it. Cold steel and a small fortune in iron. The laughter thinned, just a little. The way laughter always thins when a joke runs a half-second too long and nobody is quite sure why. Brooke rolled her shoulders back. She bent and set her grip. She planted her feet. And Walter Hayes, watching from the corner with his heart in his throat, finally remembered exactly where he had seen this woman before. He had stood ringside the day they carried her out on a stretcher, and the day every doctor in that arena swore she would never lift anything again. For a long moment, nothing happened. That was the part nobody expected. Brooke did not grip the bar and yank. She stood over it and breathed. One hand, then the other, settling onto the steel like she was greeting an old friend who had once hurt her. Her thumbs wrapped first, then her fingers locked over them, a hook grip, the kind that tears at the skin and tells the truth about how serious a person is. This was not the grip of someone trying something. It was the grip of someone coming home. Her knuckles whitened. Her breath slowed. The noise of the gym, the laughter, the phones, the cruel little jokes, all of it seemed to move one step further away, until it was just her and the bar and the old familiar weight of a decision. "Any day now," Trevor said. She did not answer. She never would. Her shins slid up to the bar until the steel kissed bone. Her hips dropped. Her back set flat and hard as a tabletop. The cheap shirt pulled tight across her shoulders, and for the first time, the room saw something the faded cotton had been hiding. Muscle. Not the showroom kind. The working kind. The kind built by 10,000 mornings nobody ever filmed. Somebody near the front stopped smiling. A man who lifted near the mirrors lowered his water bottle slowly. He had spent years under heavy bars, and he knew what a real setup looked like. He was looking at one now. He nudged the friend beside him, but the friend was already staring. The cheap shirt and the second-hand shoes had told one story. The body underneath was telling a very different one. The bar was loaded to 495 pounds. It was the same bar Trevor had walked away from 20 minutes earlier, telling his crew his back was tight. Everyone had nodded and pretended to believe him. Now a woman in second-hand shoes was bent over it like it was hers. "This is going to be good," one of the crew laughed. The laugh came out thin. Brooke pulled the slack out of the bar. The plates clinked, then went still. The whole length of the steel bent slightly, taking the load, waiting. She took one breath all the way down into her stomach. She held it. Somewhere far back in her mind, a voice she had carried for years said the same thing it always said. "You will never lift again." She had stopped arguing with that voice a long time ago. She just answered it, one rep at a time, and then she drove her feet through the floor. The bar left the ground. It did not jump. It did not fly. It rose the way the sun rises, slow and certain and impossible to argue with. 5 inches. Her knees pushed back. The plates climbed past her shins. 10 inches. The veins stood up in her forearms like cords pulled tight under the skin. Her face did not twist or strain. It stayed calm, focused, almost peaceful, which somehow made it worse to watch. Nobody in that gym was laughing now. Phones that had been held high for a joke were now held high for something else. The captions stopped being typed. 2 men near the squat racks had gone completely still. A woman whispered a curse under her breath, soft, almost reverent. The room had walked in, expecting a clip of a stranger failing. It was getting something it did not have a name for yet. The bar reached her knees, the hardest place where most lifts die. It slowed. For half a second, it hung there, trembling, the whole room holding the same breath she was holding. Then her hips snapped through and her shoulders pulled back and the bar slid up the last few inches and locked out clean at the top. 495 pounds. Held at the top by a woman they had called a janitor. The silence was total. It was the kind of silence that has weight, that presses on the ears, that makes 40 people suddenly aware of their own heartbeat. A phone slipped in someone's hand, and nobody bothered to fix the angle anymore. Brooke held the lockout one beat longer than she had to, not to show off, to let them look, to let every person who had laughed get a long, clear, undeniable look at what they had decided was nothing. Then she set the bar down. She did not drop it. Anyone can drop a weight. She lowered it, under control, all 495 pounds guided back to the floor as gently as a person lays down a sleeping child. The plates touched the rubber and settled with a soft, final click. She straightened up. She rolled the chalk off her palms. And she looked at Trevor. She did not smile. She did not gloat. She did not say a single word. She just looked at him, steady and quiet, the way you look at a small thing you have already finished being afraid of. Trevor's grin was gone. His mouth opened, then closed. Color climbed up his neck. Behind the desk, Dustin Reed stood up straight for the first time all afternoon. The boredom was gone from his face. He had seen a lot of people touch that bar over the years. He had never seen anyone make 495 pounds look like a warm-up. "Tape job," Trevor said finally. His voice cracked on the second word. "She's got a suit on under there, straps, something." Brooke heard him. She reached down, took the hem of her loose shirt, and lifted it just to the ribs. No suit, no straps, no belt, just skin and chalk and a long pale scar that ran down the side of her lower back, the kind a surgeon leaves behind. She let the shirt fall. Then she did something nobody saw coming. She crouched at the end of the bar and slid 2 more plates onto the sleeve. Then 2 more on the other side. The iron rang as it stacked. She was adding weight. She was not finished. She was asking the room a question, and the question was simple. Do you still think this is luck? The bar now read 545 pounds, more than Trevor had ever pulled in his life, more than the number in the giant photo above the front desk. People started backing away from the platform without knowing why, the way animals back away from weather. Trevor's crew had gone quiet. The soup kitchen joke felt very far away now. One of them quietly lowered his phone and stopped recording, as if filming this might somehow make him part of it. Emma Carter had both hands pressed over her mouth. Brooke stepped to the bar again. Same calm, same breath. She set her grip, dropped her hips, and pulled. The steel bent like a bow. The plates rose. Her body became one long, straight line of intent, and the weight had no say in the matter at all. It came up because she told it to. It locked out because she decided it would. 545 pounds, at the top, held, and then laid down soft. When she stood that second time, the gym made a sound it had never made before. Not a cheer. Not yet. A low, stunned exhale from 40 chests at once.
the sound a room makes when it realizes it has been wrong about something, all the way down to the bone. Trevor took a step back and bumped into his own crew. They did not steady him. They were staring at the woman, same as everyone else.
The giant photo above the front desk had not changed. Trevor Hale, 455 pounds, frozen forever at the top. But everyone in the room had just watched that number shrink. A record on a wall means nothing the moment someone walks in and pulls more in a pair of taped-together shoes. And in the corner, Walter Hayes finally let go of his mop. It clattered to the floor. He walked forward on shaking legs, through the parting crowd, his eyes wet and wide and fixed on Brooke, like a man seeing a ghost step out of a photograph. People moved out of his way without meaning to. The same crowd that had ignored him for 19 years, that had stepped over his wet floors and never learned his name, now parted for him, like he mattered. Maybe, for the first time in this building, he did. He stopped a few feet from her. His voice came out cracked and small and full of 19 years of silence. "I know you," he said. "God help me. I know exactly who you are." The whole gym turned to look at the old janitor nobody had ever once listened to. 40 phones turned slowly with them. The joke they had come for was gone. Something far larger had walked into its place, and every person in that room could feel it now. The way you feel a storm in the air before the first drop ever lands. She had a name the entire sport had once been afraid to lift against. And the second this old man said it out loud, every smug face in the room was going to wish they had never raised a phone. "You're Brooke Lawson," Walter said. The name landed soft, but it traveled. A few of the older lifters near the back went rigid. One of them lowered himself onto a bench like his legs had quit. The younger crowd just looked confused. They did not know the name. They were about to learn why they should have. An older man on the back bench found his voice. "Lawson," he said to the kid next to him, almost reverent. "You don't understand. We had her on our walls. Kids in this sport wanted to be her. She wasn't just good. She was the one everybody else measured themselves against." The kid looked back at the woman in the second-hand shoes and could not make the two pictures fit. "Brooke Lawson," Walter said again, louder now, turning to the room like a man who could not keep the truth in his chest 1 second longer. "National champion, 3 years running. She held the record in her class, held it longer than anyone before her." "That's not possible," Trevor said, but his voice had no floor under it. 570 at a body weight half of yours, Walter went on. "I judged the meet. I was 3 feet from that bar. I have never, in 40 years in this sport, seen a human being move iron the way this woman moved it." Nobody laughed. Nobody filmed for jokes now. They filmed because something was happening that they did not understand yet. And the body knows to record a thing it cannot name. Brooke said nothing. She walked to her battered gym bag, the one Trevor had kicked across the floor, and she knelt beside it. The zipper stuck. She worked it free with 2 fingers. From inside, she lifted something wrapped in a faded blue cloth. She unfolded it, slowly. It was a weightlifting belt. Old leather, cracked along the fold, dark with years of chalk and sweat. The kind of belt a person does not replace, because replacing it would mean letting go of who they were when they earned it. Stamped into the leather, worn but still readable, were 3 words and a title. Brooke Lawson, National Champion. Walter made a sound, half laugh, half sob. "I gave that belt out myself," he whispered. "I put it around your waist on that stage. You were 24 years old." He remembered the weight of it in his hands. the smell of new leather, the way her eyes had filled when he buckled it on. He had handed out 100 belts in his life. He had only ever cried over one of them. This one. He had wondered for 6 years where it had ended up. Now he knew. She had carried it through all of it, folded in blue cloth, the one piece of that life she had refused to let them steal. The room had gone very still. "Tell them the rest," Brooke said quietly. It was the first full sentence she had spoken to anyone. "You were there. Tell them how it ended." Walter's face crumpled. He looked, for a moment, like he was back in that arena, watching it happen all over again. "There was a fourth attempt," he said. "A record nobody had touched. She didn't have to take it. She was already champion. But she wanted the number. She wanted to leave something behind that lasted." He could still see it. The arena lights, the chalk hanging in the air like smoke. 9,000 people on their feet before she had even bent down. She chalked her hands the same slow way she had chalked them tonight. She stepped to the bar like it owed her something. The bar came up. It locked. And then her back gave out at the top. He pressed a hand over his mouth, then forced himself to continue. "I heard it from 3 feet away. A sound a body should never make. She went down on that platform, and she did not get up. They carried her out on a stretcher in front of 9,000 people. The doctors said her lifting days were finished. Some of them said she might not walk right again. For weeks, she lay in a hospital bed and learned a new vocabulary. Words like fusion and nerve damage and realistic expectations. Her teammates visited less and less. The sport moves fast. It does not wait for the fallen. By the time she could sit up on her own, the world had already crowned the next champion. The gym was silent in a way that hurt. That should have been the worst part, Walter said. It wasn't. He turned and looked directly at Trevor. So did Brooke. So slowly did the entire room. The worst part was the video, Walter said. Trevor's face drained of all its color. Somebody in the crowd filmed her on the ground, Walter said. The crying, the pain, the most broken moment of a young woman's life. And they didn't call for help. They posted it. They wrote a caption under it, made it funny, made it cruel, called her the girl who snapped in half chasing a number she was never strong enough to hold. A low sound moved through the gym. Not laughter. Disgust. The kind of sound a crowd makes when it suddenly sees itself in the villain and does not like the reflection. Several people who had been laughing 20 minutes ago went pale because they understood, all at once, that they had just done a smaller version of the very same thing. He took a step toward Trevor. That video followed her everywhere. It buried her. People didn't remember the champion. They remembered the joke. She disappeared from the sport because every gym she walked into, somebody had already seen the clip. Walter's voice shook. It had a username on it. I never forgot that username. I have hated that username for 6 years. Trevor was shaking his head now, fast, small. No, that was a long time ago. That was just a joke. Everybody was sharing it. I wasn't the only one. The confession fell out of him before he understood he was making it, and the whole room heard it. Brooke finally looked at Trevor fully. For the first time, the way you look at the source of an old scar. I know it was you, she said. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. I have known since the second I heard your laugh in the parking lot. I didn't come here for you, Trevor. I came here because it was the closest platform to my new apartment. You being here is just the world being honest for once. Trevor's eyes kept darting to the door. the king of Iron Crucible, the face on the wall, was suddenly looking for a way out of his own gym. But there were 40 phones between him and the exit, and every one of them had just turned from fan to witness. She set the belt down on the bench, gently, like it was still breathing. "For 3 years, I learned how to walk again," she said. "Then I learned how to lift again, ounces at first, then pounds. Alone, in a garage, with nobody filming, because the last time someone filmed me, it took everything I had. The first day back, the empty bar had felt like a car. 45 pounds, and her hands shook so hard she had to set it down twice. She had cried in that garage more times than she would ever say out loud. But she kept showing up. Not for a record, not for revenge, just to prove to one person, herself, that they had not finished her after all. She looked around the room, slow, taking in every lowered phone. Funny how that works. Emma Carter was crying openly now and not bothering to hide it. She had walked into this gym 3 weeks ago feeling like she did not belong, and she had just watched the most powerful person in the building turn out to be the one they had thrown away. A man near the mirrors, one of the ones who had laughed, took off his hat. It was a small thing, but in that room, at that moment, it meant everything. One by one, others followed. Phones came down. Faces that had been smug 20 minutes ago could not meet her eyes. The man who had taken off his hat stepped forward. "Ma'am," he started, then stopped, because no word he owned was big enough. "I laughed," he finally said. "I'm sorry. I laughed at Brooke Lawson." He said it like a confession in a church. She gave him a small nod. Not forgiveness, not yet. But she heard him, and being heard was more than this room had offered her all afternoon. By the door, a woman in a gray coat had stopped halfway through leaving. Eleanor Cole had run regional federation events for 20 years. She had come to Iron Crucible to meet a sponsor about their golden boy. Instead, she was watching a resurrection. She had quietly started recording too, though for reasons very different from everyone else in the room. The Federation had spent 6 years pretending Brooke Lawson never existed. Eleanor had always thought that was the worst thing the sport ever did. Walter stepped close and, with hands that would not stop trembling, picked the belt up off the bench and held it out to her. "This is yours," he said. "It was always yours. They couldn't take it. They only made you forget you still had it." Brooke took the belt. She held it against her chest for one long breath. Something behind her eyes finally softened, just slightly, just enough. And then, across the gym, a phone broke the silence. Not with a laugh, with a voice, tinny and small, playing from a screen. It was the old video, 6 years old. Someone had found it. Her younger self, crying on a platform, and a caption underneath built to wound. Heads turned toward the sound. Then they turned toward Trevor, because everyone now knew whose username sat in the corner of that clip. The same crowd that came to watch Brooke Lawson fall was about to watch the man who filmed her fall do exactly that. And this time, every phone in the room was pointed the other way. It happened fast, the way these things always do now. Someone held up 2 phones side by side. On the left, the 6-year-old clip, a broken young woman on a platform, and a cruel little caption. On the right, footage from 20 minutes ago. The same man, older now, kicking a gym bag across the floor and calling a stranger trash. Same eyes, same sneer, same username in the corner. You did not need to be told what you were looking at. The story told itself. For a few seconds, nobody moved. People looked from one screen to the other, doing the math. And the math was simple and damning. The man who had spent the afternoon grinding a stranger into the floor was the same man who had filmed the worst day of her life and sold it as a joke. Two cruelties, 6 years apart, wearing the same face. The room had loved that face an hour ago.
"My God," the older man on the back bench said softly. "It was him. It was him the whole time." He had cheered for Trevor Hale at 3 meets. He looked like he wanted to be sick. "Delete that," Trevor said. He lunged toward the nearest phone. "Delete it, right now." The man holding it stepped back and kept recording. "No, that's private. You can't film me." "You filmed her," someone called from the crowd. "For 6 years."
Trevor grabbed for a second phone and missed. A young woman yanked it out of his reach. "Don't touch me," she snapped, and the look she gave him matched the look 40 people were giving him now. He was used to being feared. He had no idea what to do with being despised. Trevor spun in a slow circle, hands out, and for the first time, the room was not a stage for him. It was a trap. 40 lenses, and every one pointed at him. An hour ago, those same lenses had been his oxygen. He performed for them. He built a life on them. Now, they had all turned at once into small, bright mirrors, and he could not stand to look at a single one. "This is taken out of context," he said. His voice climbed toward the register people use when they already know they have lost. "You don't know the whole story. That meet was years ago. I was a kid. Everybody filmed stuff back then." "You were 26, Walter said. "I looked it up a long time ago. You were a grown man." "Stay out of this, old man. You mop floors." "I do," Walter said. He did not flinch. "And I never once stepped on a person who was already down." He had spent 19 years invisible in this building, emptying trash cans these people walked past without seeing. Tonight, every head in the room had turned to listen to him. It was a strange thing how the smallest man in the building had turned out to be the only one standing tall. Something in the room shifted with that line. A few people actually clapped. Trevor heard it, and the sound seemed to physically hurt him. He turned to the front desk. Dustin, you work here. Get these people out. Delete the cameras. This is private property, and they are harassing a paying member." Dustin Reed looked at him for a long moment. For 11 years, Dustin had done whatever the loudest man in the room told him to do. It was easier. It paid the same. But he had also just heard that loudest man confess out loud to one of the cruelest things Dustin had ever heard. And there are some things you cannot unhear and stay the same person. "She's a paying member, too," Dustin said quietly. "What?" "She signed up this morning. I processed it myself." Dustin set his phone face down on the desk. "She paid for a full year, so she can use any platform she likes, including yours." The crowd made a sound, low and warm, almost a growl of approval. Trevor stared at his manager like the floor had opened up. "You're done here," Trevor said. "I'll have you fired by tonight." "Maybe," Dustin said, "but not for this." For the first time in 11 years, Dustin felt something in his chest that was not boredom. It felt a little like self-respect. He had forgotten what it weighed. Trevor's panic found a new target. It always does. He turned back to Brooke, and his face twisted into something ugly and desperate. A man reaching for the only weapon that had ever worked for him. "You think this makes you somebody?" he said. "One lift in a garbage gym in front of nobodies? You were finished 6 years ago. I just reminded everybody. You're still that girl crying on the floor. You will always be that girl crying on the floor. He waited for the laugh, the reflex of years, the laugh that always came when he was cruel. It did not come. 40 people looked at him in total silence, and the silence told him something his whole life had managed to hide from him. They had never been laughing with him. They had only ever been afraid of being next. The room held its breath, waiting for her to break. She did not. Brooke looked at him with something that was almost pity. "You've been watching that clip for 6 years too, haven't you?" she said. "You just watch it for a different reason than I do." Trevor opened his mouth and nothing came out. "You needed me to stay broken," she said, "because if the girl on the floor could get back up, then beating her never meant anything. And somewhere, deep down, you have always known it never meant anything." It was not a shout. It was worse than a shout. It was the truth, said plainly, in a quiet voice, in a room full of witnesses. That was the moment the woman in the gray coat finally walked forward. Eleanor Cole did not hurry. She had the unbothered walk of a person who has authority and has never once had to raise her voice to prove it. She stopped between Brooke and Trevor and turned, deliberately, to face him. "Mr. Hale," she said, "my name is Eleanor Cole. I run the Regional Federation Circuit. I came here this afternoon as a personal favor." She let that sit. "Your sponsor asked me to take a look at you. They are building a national campaign, a clean image, family gyms, kids. They wanted my honest opinion on whether you were the right face for it." The blood left Trevor's face all over again. "I have my opinion now," Eleanor said. "I will be sharing it with them on my drive home." "You can't," Trevor whispered. "That contract is everything. That is my whole... You can't do that to me." "I am not doing anything to you," Eleanor said. "You did all of it. I just happened to be standing here when you did." She glanced at the phone still recording. So did the internet. Behind Trevor, his crew had quietly become strangers. The 3 men in matching shirts had drifted toward the door, suddenly very interested in their own phones, unwilling to stand in a single frame with him. That is the thing about men who collect followers. The moment the wind turns, followers are exactly what they are. She turned her back on him then. In that world, in that sport, there is no louder statement than a person of consequence turning their back on you in a full room. Trevor was still talking, still grasping, but nobody was looking at him anymore. They were looking at Brooke. Emma Carter pushed through to the front. She did not say anything clever. She just stood next to Brooke, close, the way you stand beside someone to tell a whole room which side you are on. Brooke glanced at the girl, this nervous beginner in her 3rd week, and gave her the smallest smile. It was the first time Brooke had smiled all day. Outside, in the real world beyond the glass, the clips were already moving, the new one and the old one, stitched together by strangers, racing across the same internet that had buried her 6 years ago. Only this time, the comments were not laughing at the girl on the floor. This time, they were asking her name. This time, they were saying it with respect. A teenager 3 states away paused the clip on Brooke's lockout and sent it to her mother with 2 words: "Watch her." A coach in another city played it for his team the next morning. Within the hour, the old caption that had haunted her for 6 years had a new line written beneath it by a stranger, and it simply said, "She came back." The internet is a cruel machine. Once in a while, it remembers how to be just. Eleanor stepped close to Brooke and lowered her voice so only she could hear. "The circuit has an exhibition in 3 weeks," she said. "Main platform, Live broadcast. I can give you the closing slot if you want it. The whole sport will be watching." She paused. "You don't owe anyone a comeback, Brooke. But if you ever wanted the last word, this would be it." Brooke looked down at the old belt in her hands, the cracked leather, the worn letters, the name they had tried so hard to erase. Then she looked up, past Eleanor, past the phones, to the platform where 545 pounds still sat waiting on the floor. For 6 years, she had imagined 1,000 ways to make Trevor Hale pay. Standing here now, with all the power finally in her own hands, she realized she wanted none of them. Revenge was a small room. She had lived in it for years, and she knew every inch of its walls. You could win in there and still never find the door out. Trevor had spent his whole life in that room and called it a throne. She was finished living where he lived. She wanted something much harder and much bigger, and it had nothing to do with him at all. When Brooke Lawson finally stepped to the center of that gym to speak, the man who spent 6 years trying to destroy her was about to learn the cruelest lesson of all: that the people who truly win never waste their victory on revenge. Brooke walked to the center of the gym. She did not climb on a bench. She did not raise her hands for quiet. She did not need to. The room had been waiting for her to speak since the moment the bar touched the floor. And now it went so silent you could hear the air conditioner hum. She still held the old belt against her side, the cracked leather, the worn name. 6 years of carrying the only proof that she had once been somebody. Through every city that had forgotten her. She had not planned to say anything. Words had never been her language. But she looked out at the faces in front of her, and she saw more than a gym. She saw every back row she had ever stood in, every door that had shut before she reached it. And she understood that the lift had been for her. What came next had to be for them. "I'm not going to stand here and tear him down," she said. Heads turned toward Trevor, who stood alone now in the middle of his own kingdom. "He's already doing that to himself," Brooke went on. "And I have better things to do with my hands." A few people laughed, soft and surprised. It broke something loose in the room. Some held breath, some old tension. "I want to talk to the rest of you," she said. "Not the ones who laughed. You'll figure it out. I want to talk to the ones who almost left. The ones standing in the back who know exactly what it feels like to be a decision somebody else made before you even opened your mouth." She turned and looked at the loaded bar on the platform. "This thing does not care," she said. "It does not care what you look like. It does not care what you earn or where you sleep or what somebody posted about you 6 years ago. Steel has no opinion. The bar asks you one question, and it asks everybody the same one. Did you come back? That is it. That is the only question that has ever mattered in this sport or anywhere else." Her voice stayed low. People leaned in to catch it. They told me I was finished. Doctors, coaches, strangers on the internet who had never met me. And for a long time, I believed them. That is the part nobody warns you about. She pressed a hand flat against her chest. The cruelty, you can survive. People are cruel and then they move on. It is the believing them that almost kills you. It is the voice you start to hear in your own head, in your own voice, saying the exact words they said. She let that breathe. I lost more to that voice than I ever lost to any of them. It took the sport. It took my sleep. For a while, it nearly took the will to try it all. Beating it back, one rep at a time, in a garage where no one could see me, was the hardest lift of my life. Heavier than any bar in this room. She walked to the platform, slowly, and laid the belt down across the loaded bar. Old leather on cold steel. The thing they gave her, and the thing that broke her, lying together at last. "I am putting this here on purpose," she said, "because a belt on a wall is just a trophy. A belt on the bar is a promise. And I am done keeping it folded up in a bag where the world can't touch it." Then she found Walter in the crowd, the old man who had remembered her when no one else would. "That man right there mopped these floors for 19 years, she said. "Not one of you ever learned his name. He was the only person in this whole building who saw me before I touched a bar. That is strength too. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the quiet one holding a mop, refusing to look away." Walter's face broke completely. Somewhere in the crowd, for the first time in 19 years, a voice quietly asked the old man his name. She looked around the room one more time, and when she spoke again, every word came out like she was setting it down somewhere safe. If you are in the back of a room, like I was, with a bag held together with tape, and the whole world has already laughed at you, I need you to hear this. Come back anyway. Come back quiet. Come back on the days it is hard, and there is no one around to film the good ones. The people who win are almost never the loudest ones in the room. They are the ones who are still standing there when the noise finally stops. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, Emma Carter started to cry, and she was not the only one. A grown man by the squat racks wiped his face with the back of his wrist and pretended he had not. Walter Hayes stood near the wall with both hands over his mouth. 19 years of being invisible, breaking apart behind his eyes. This was not the crying of sad people. It was the other kind. The kind that comes when something you had stopped believing in turns out to be real after all. Half that room had walked in certain about who mattered and who did not. They were walking out with that certainty in pieces on the floor, and they were grateful for it. Brooke turned at last to Trevor. The whole room tensed, waiting for the blow, the line that would finish him, the revenge they had all earned the right to watch. It did not come. "I forgave you a long time ago, Trevor," she said, quietly, only for him, though the room heard it. "Not because you deserved it, because I needed my hands free to carry better things than you." Trevor Hale, the strongest man in the gym, the face on the wall, the king of Iron Crucible, looked at the woman he had spent 6 years trying to keep on the floor. And then he did the only honest thing he had done all day. He bowed his head. It was not a grand collapse. There were no tears, no apology speech, no redemption in a single afternoon. Just a man, lowering his eyes, finally unable to hold them up under the weight of what he had done. In a sport built on lifting heavy things, it turned out the heaviest thing in the room was a single moment of shame, and he could not press it off his chest. His crew did not come back for him. Nobody filmed him for fun anymore. He gathered his bag in the silence and walked toward the door, and the crowd parted for him too, but not the way it had parted for Walter. It parted the way water moves away from something it wants out of the pool. Nobody cheered. That surprised even them. They had wanted blood all afternoon, and now that the moment had finally come, blood was the last thing anyone wanted. What they felt instead was something cleaner and much rarer. They had watched a person refuse to become the thing that had hurt her, and somehow that was a bigger victory than any takedown could ever have been. The giant photo still hung above the desk. Trevor Hale, 455 pounds, frozen at the top. But everyone who looked at it now saw it differently. It was not a champion anymore. It was a warning about the kind of strength that has nothing underneath it. Eleanor Cole watched all of it from the side, very still, her recording long since stopped. She had come to this gym to evaluate a brand. She was leaving it having felt something she had not felt in the sport in 20 years. She did not have a word for it yet. The closest one was grace. Outside, the clips kept spreading. But the one that traveled furthest, in the end, was not the lift, and it was not the fall of Trevor Hale. It was a phone someone had kept rolling through the whole speech. A woman in a faded shirt laying an old belt across a loaded bar, telling a room full of strangers to come back anyway. By morning, that clip would have a title that strangers gave it on their own. Come back anyway. Brooke bent down, gripped the bar one more time, and for a moment, everyone thought she might lift it again. Instead, she simply straightened the belt across the knurling, the way you tuck a blanket over someone you love. Then she looked up and found the nervous girl from the third week, still standing close, still watching her like she was trying to memorize something. Brooke had seen that look before. She had worn it herself once, in a back row, watching a champion she never dreamed she would one day become. She had said what she came to say, but she had not yet done the one thing that would turn a single afternoon into something that outlived every person in that room. Because Brooke Lawson was not finished with Iron Crucible. And what she did next would change that gym and that nervous girl in her third week for the rest of their lives. Brooke did not leave when Trevor did. That was the first surprise. Everyone expected her to walk out a legend, to let the door swing shut on the best exit the gym had ever seen. Instead, she crossed the floor to the water fountain, to the nervous girl in the third week shirt, and she put out her hand. "Brooke," she said. "I know," Emma whispered. "Everybody knows now." "What do you pull?" Emma blinked. Not much. I just started." "That is not what I asked." Brooke almost smiled. "Everybody pulls not much when they start. I asked what you pull. Say it like it already belongs to you." Emma looked at the loaded bar on the platform, then at the woman who had just moved it like it weighed nothing, and something in her stood up a little straighter. "More than I did yesterday," she said. "There it is," Brooke said. "Be here tomorrow at 6. We start there." Emma showed up at 5:45 the next morning, 15 minutes early, because she was sure it was a test. It was not. Brooke was already there, chalk on her hands, the lights still half off. "Good," was all she said. Then she taught a beginner how to set her feet the way champions set theirs, and she did it with the same patience whether the bar held 45 pounds or 500. To Brooke, there was no difference. There was only the person and whether they came back. It was that simple. And it was not simple at all. In one sentence, the most talked about lifter in the country had taken on a beginner the rest of the gym had spent 3 weeks ignoring. The people watching understood they had just seen the real lift of the day, not the bar. This. The weeks that followed changed Iron Crucible from the inside out. It did not happen with a speech or a press release. It happened the way real things happen, quietly, one morning at a time. Brooke came in at 6 every day and coached anyone who showed up willing to work. She did not ask what you weighed or what you could pull or what you looked like in the mirror. She asked one thing: did you come back? Everything started there. The crowd that gathered around her was not the old crowd. It was the people who used to train in the corners, near the bad lighting, hoping nobody would watch. The heavy kid, the older woman starting over at 50, the teenager with a stutter who could not look anyone in the eye. The ones the gym had quietly been built to make feel small. One by one, Brooke pulled them out of the corners and put them under the bar. And one by one, they found out what they were actually made of. The teenager with the stutter pulled his first triple bodyweight deadlift on a Tuesday morning, and when he stood up, he let out a shout that did not stutter at all. The 50-year-old woman brought her granddaughter in to watch her train. The heavy kid stopped hiding in the corner, mostly because Brooke had quietly erased the corners until there was nowhere left in that gym a person was supposed to feel small. Dustin Reed never did get fired. The owners saw the videos, saw the new memberships pouring in, and made Dustin the manager, for real, on the condition that the harassment rule in the handbook would finally mean something. Dustin framed that page and hung it by the door. People thought it was a joke. He did not. Trevor Hale was not seen at Iron Crucible again. The sponsor campaign went to someone else. The followers found a new face to cheer the way they always do. Word was he trained alone now, in a gym across town where nobody knew him, which may have been the first honest thing his life had ever asked of him. Brooke never said his name again. He had taken up enough of her years already. She was not about to give him any more. The giant photo of Trevor came down off the wall. Nobody made a ceremony of it. One day, it was simply gone, and in its place hung something else. A plain wood sign, hand-lettered by Emma, that said 4 words. Everybody pulls here now. And Walter Hayes finally got his name. The owner had a small brass plate made and screwed it to the wall above the spot where Walter kept his mop. Walter Hayes, it read, Head Coach Emeritus. He protested that he had not coached anyone in 30 years. Brooke told him he had been coaching the whole time, just with a mop instead of a clipboard, and that the best coaching is the kind that simply refuses to look away. He cried again. He was getting used to it. 3 weeks after that afternoon, Brooke took Eleanor Cole's closing slot at the exhibition. The arena was the same kind of room that had broken her 6 years earlier. Same bright lights, same chalk hanging in the air like smoke. Same 9,000 people, except this time they were chanting 4 words before she had even reached the platform. 4 words a stranger had given to a clip on the internet. Come back anyway. Come back anyway. She did not chase the old record. She did not need the number anymore. She walked out, set her feet, and pulled a weight that should have been impossible for a woman the doctors once sent home in a wheelchair. It locked out clean. The arena came apart at the seams. Somewhere in those 9,000 people, the old officials who had carried her out on a stretcher 6 years before were on their feet, screaming, weeping, watching the impossible undo itself in real time. The record books would log a number. They would never log what it cost. Only Brooke knew the true weight of that bar, and it was measured in years, not pounds. But the lift was not the moment. The moment came after. Brooke walked off the platform, past the cameras and the officials and the reporters shouting her name, straight to a girl waiting at the rail. Emma Carter, in her first competition singlet, terrified and shaking, there to attempt a number she never would have dreamed of 3 weeks before. Brooke reached into her bag and pulled out the old belt, the cracked leather, the worn name, National Champion. The one thing she had carried through every dark year, the one thing they could never take. She held it out. "No," Emma said. "I can't. That's yours." "It was mine," Brooke said. "Now it is becoming yours. That is how this is supposed to work. We do not keep these things. We pass them down before the world can convince us we were never strong enough to hold them in the first place." She buckled the belt around the girl's waist with her own hands, the same way Walter had once buckled it around hers, on a stage, when she was 24 and certain she would live forever. The arena had gone quiet. 9,000 people watching a thing most of them did not have words for. A champion at the height of her own comeback, handing the proof of it to a beginner, on purpose, before the girl had earned a single trophy. It was the opposite of everything that sport usually rewarded. It may have been the most powerful thing any of them ever saw under those lights. "Now go," Brooke said. "Show them what came back."
Emma walked to the bar with a champion's belt around her waist and a champion standing behind her. And whatever happened with that lift no longer mattered, because the only number that ever counted had already been answered. She had come back. She would keep coming back. And one day, years from now, she would unbuckle that same belt and hand it to some frightened kid in the back of some other room. And the whole thing would begin again. That is what they tried to take from Brooke Lawson with a cruel little video. Not a record, not a title. A future. The chance to become the person who lifts other people up. They failed. They could not have known it then, laughing in that gym with their phones in the air. But they failed completely. The girl crying on the floor got back up. And when she did not come back for revenge. She came back for everyone still waiting in the corners for someone to tell them their turn had finally come. If this story moved you, take a second and do something with it. Drop a comment and tell me about a time someone wrote you off and what you did next. Share this with the one person in your life who needs to hear "come back anyway" today. And if you believe the people the world overlooks are usually the strongest ones in the room, subscribe and stay a while, because every story on this channel is for them. Okay, real talk. I almost didn't make this one, but I kept thinking about everyone out there right now, sitting in the back of some room while the whole world has already decided exactly who they are and what they will never be. That is the only reason I tell these stories. Not for the lift, not for the takedown, for the part where she came back when literally nobody was clapping for her. If you are in your garage era right now, quiet, unseen, grinding with zero applause and zero proof it will ever pay off, I need you to hear me. Don't let them write your ending. Get back up. Come back anyway. I mean it.